want to be able to present something like this, but it will have lots of caveats, whereas our more micro metrics will be sort of purer in a scientific, data-driven sense. So this is AIDS resilience framework. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. You have it in your handbooks. It is different and distinct than the Tulane Disaster Resilience Leadership Academy framework. What I would call your attention to and think it would bear discussion in your breakout groups today and tomorrow is the variables that you're looking at. And so it's interesting given the comments on governance this morning and a potential area of focus being specific systems, governance systems, economic systems. The way AID is thinking about it is you see, the 6 variables on the left, the 6 variables on the right, and then governance and women's empowerment as central. And maybe, Greg, you can talk a little bit about kind of the rationale about those relationships as the policy task team thought about it. But those are slightly different. Then there's a lot of overlap, but then the variables in the Haiti case study by Tulane, and I think it would be very useful at a minimum for the 4 labs, the core labs, to think through intentionally, are you going to be studying the same variables or different variables, and if they're different, why will that be? And what is the relationship? Is governance in itself a variable? There was an interesting case for that being made this morning in our group. Or is it something that's central to everything? And I just wanted to highlight for a moment the women's empowerment. I was on the Gender Equality and Female Empowerment Task Team, the policy team, and it's important in the work plan to take a fresh look at that language based on AIDS policy. And I would really encourage the RAND managers to recirculate it, because it's not just about disaggregating data for male and female. It's really about, and this is going to be so relevant for all of your work, identifying that how men and women and children experience differently, how they have different access to household assets, to education, to what is the difference between their control of wealth in the decision-making process in the household, and how are those relevant to our resilience programming, and how can we close those gaps? So the policy really takes the way we look at gender and development to a different level, and I would encourage everyone to read it as you're designing the work plan. This is just a close-up. So these are the resilience principles that will be applied across our work. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, and Greg will probably talk a little bit about them, but I just want to call our attention, because I want to highlight the overlap between what the RAND is doing and what the policy does, enabling host country regional ownership. So again, that is happening at this moment in this room. And so we all want to be very cognizant of that going forward, and how the RAND supports this effort by doing exactly this, enabling host country regional ownership, and rooting our programming in the societies where they occur. So you will be instrumental in realizing that objective for USAID. Next. He referred to these earlier, so I'm glad I kept this slide in. It's a little out of place, but really what we want to call attention to is aid in its policy. We have this policy framework now for everything we do. And these are the core principles. So the idea is that whether we're doing a health program or a multi-sectoral intervention in Karamoja, we do all of these things. And as you can see, one of them is applying science, technology, and innovation. So the competition, as William was saying, that you won, was AIDS operationalizing this principle in its work. Next. And here's how we're thinking about monitoring, evaluation, and learning. I think Nancy did a great job and her team of summarizing this morning. And the only thing that I want to highlight here is that this is one area where we will have seamless relationship between how aid is defining monitoring, evaluation, and impact, how the HESN defines it and how the RAN defines it. Because that's simply the only way that we'll be able to effectively report on the results. So we're not going to have different definitions of performance measures or objectives or projects. We're going to all use the same definitions. And so that's all been crosswalked into all of your materials. And we've been working a lot on that with the RAN and with 2 Light.